Believe in yourself. You're the only one who will suffer if you don't follow your dreams. What is going on, everybody? I wanted to start this off with a little quote that meant a lot to me. I've been a little under the weather this week, and it's been pretty upsetting. Uh, if you don't know, I've cut out a lot of unhealthy habits from my life, and I have been, on a pretty super healthy diet. So I'm hoping it's a little touch of food poisoning and not getting sick, because I really didn't want to get sick on my new diet to help prove that the diet is good. But so anyway, Saturday night, after eating some random stuff in my refrigerator, when I got home from the game store that night, I felt pretty terrible going to sleep. And then Sunday morning, I felt like a truck had ran me over multiple times when I woke up. So my whole skeleton and muscles and body hurt, and I was very fatigued. So it felt a lot like I was getting a fever, or I had a fever. Now, I don't own a thermometer currently, but I don't think it was a fever. And it's weird because it felt like I got sick, but it never fully formed into like a cold or a fever or a flu. It just remained like this fatigue and muscle ache. And so today is Tuesday. I spent all day Monday sleeping with a little help of NyQuil, and been taking naps on Monday. I took a nap today, and it's up kind of late tonight. So I'm feeling a little bit back into it. And I want to just talk to you a little bit about happiness. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I got all these kickstarters coming in that I backed last year. Part of my research for running the Ghost Brush campaign on Kickstarter, which was super successful, was spending a lot of time on Kickstarter learning about the platform, which meant I spent a lot of time reading people's Kickstarters and ended up buying like 5 large board games on Kickstarter. It's I think it's 6 or 7 now, but and you can go to my Kickstarter profile, Sleepwalk Air, and follow me for the next campaign. And you can, I believe, see the ones I backed. So it's a lot of cool board games. And I backed those a year ago when I was still stuck in my parents' house, my old bedroom. I had fully recovered from debt that I caused myself in Vegas through alcoholism and various injuries I caused myself and not paying my taxes. And I had finally had about maybe a year or so of no debt, that I was saving my money. My pay working for my dad at the time was not really good enough to even get my own place without basically struggling every month to live there. And then also there was the fear of losing my job if I left the house, because part of having that job, I think, meant that I was on call 24 hours a day. Obviously, we weren't working in the middle of the night, but if it was 6 p.m., 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m., and, Harrah's Casino needed 20 receivers activated in Vegas, I had to sit on the phone and do that. And not always. It wasn't like a stressful thing, but it wasn't fulfilling, or I don't know, I didn't like it. So when the panic attacks started while I was driving, which really threatened my job security, because what I did mostly was drive around and try to set up new accounts for DirecTV. The panic attacks and fear of driving that just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I'm an adult who cannot drive a car. And that changed my life dramatically. So this story is going to be a little bit all over the place, but I don't have a script, so hopefully you just follow along because I'm being honest. And this is just the real deal. So the panic attacks set in, and I knew I didn't want to live the rest of my life afraid to leave the house, afraid to fly, afraid to get in a car, afraid to be out in public, afraid to go to the grocery store, which were things that were happening out of nowhere, and it was a very, very hard time in my life. Now, these sudden dramatic changes to my life made me start thinking, how can I get out of this? How can I set up my life to where I don't have to worry about losing my job if, I can't drive again? I don't even want to worry about, maybe I can never work again. Because at this time, I was having a hard time going to the grocery store. So do you think I could go work at a cash register for 7 hours straight without freaking out and having to leave? Probably not, right? That's what's going on in my head. So I started figuring out how to design my life around being able to at least survive without a job from my dad and my uncle, and potentially without a job from anybody else. And that was just to avoid, potentially a very dark turn, which was being unable to live with myself if I was going to be afraid to leave the house for the rest of my life. That was the darkness. I don't want to say the word, but that was what I pictured, and I couldn't bear to face it. So I started working on learning about YouTube, which I'd always been interested in doing. I started learning about eBay, and luckily I have a friend in Vegas who just had this monster success on eBay, and he helped me with just some of my starter questions. And what I did, I spent a lot of time on YouTube learning about selling stuff on eBay. And my thought was, instead of a life of fear and a life of pain and suffering in a bedroom at, a relative's house, because I'm an incapable person of, say, getting a job or holding a job, I could at least live near a post office and make a living. And that was very exciting to me, and that got me out of a very dark place. So what I did is let's dig into that a little more, just because this is kind of like therapy for me too. And hopefully it helps somebody out there, because a lot of you are like real life friends, even though some of us have never met. And I think some of us are afraid to talk about mental kind of issues. I imagine too, in like the whole nerd culture or wargaming culture, there's a lot of people that are very awkward around women or in public or whatever. And I don't think that's just because they're nerds or they like Space Marines. I think a lot of that could be mental health problems that maybe this will help them. So anyway, the idea was, if I live near a post office and I could drive a very short distance to and from the post office, I could make a living and pay rent for the rest of my life, hopefully. If I could also live somewhere near a grocery store, then I could make that short drive to the grocery store and home. And then you can pay all your bills online. Basically, you don't need to go very many other places. Maybe the dentist, whatever. Maybe I could take an Uber if I couldn't drive that far. And these were the thoughts running through my head. This is the life I wanted to design, based purely on, I guess, just the fear of not, being able to do anything. Or what, I don't know. So how I approached it first is I started learning how to do eBay, and I put up a Salamander Cassius Chaplin on eBay. I made my account, put one model up as an auction. I put him up for like $5. He sold for like $22 or something, and I got so excited. And I only put up one item because you don't need to put up 1,000 things. You don't need a store with 10,000 items. I wanted to put up one so I could see what happens when somebody bids, what happens when the item sells, what kind of notification I'll get, what the dashboard will look like on eBay, how do I buy a shipping label. I didn't have a scale back then. I was going to the post office and standing in line, and I would stand there with my little boxes, and they would complain because I would buy these tiny little boxes. And, just because I wanted to reduce shipping. I sold a few things at a loss. I sold like some California raisin stuffed animals to Japan, not knowing how expensive international shipping was, but I didn't know anything about international shipping. and I shipped it at a loss to myself. So basically I gave away money to learn how to ship internationally. And it wasn't like a huge sum, but a lot of people would have just been like, oh, I can't sell my California raisins. But, I did. And a lot of times in the post office, I would sit there panicking out of my mind. Dizzy, afraid to pass out, looking at sharp sharp counters, tops, and corners, thinking when I pass out, that's where I'm going to hit my head and split it open, trying to look around at the other people in line and, just try to get some peace of mind knowing that at least they will assist me or help me or call the police or the ambulance or whatever when I die waiting here. And there would be people in the post office, which of course, post office seems like archaic in a way, but there would be people who are like 80, 90 years old, who could barely walk, barely stand, who would be waiting in line, and I would just look at them and think, if they could do it, so could I, right? If they're 100 years old and they can go to the post office, and I'm 31, 32 at the time, maybe 30. I'm not sure exactly. I'm 34 now, but it's quite a few years ago. I would just think, first of all, if they can do it, I can do it, because, there's nothing wrong here. They're doing it, and they're much more frail and old or elderly than I am, and they don't seem afraid like I am. And also, sorry. Also, if I could picture myself being that old, I couldn't imagine living with myself for like 50 more years. So, I didn't think it'd be hard to say all this out loud, but we're gonna just keep going. I didn't think it would be hard to live with myself for 50 more years in that condition. So I kept working on it a lot. I would sit in the driveway, in the car, and just practice being inside a car. Turn it on, sometimes tears running down my face. And, I got better, right? I would practice driving around the neighborhood, not even going out on a main street. And all this started kind of the positive changes in my life when I quit drinking, I quit smoking, eventually I quit caffeine, and all those type of things. I quit medications for the anxiety because I was, they were giving me terrible nightmares every night, which is now becoming a big problem because I was not only afraid to leave the house, I was now afraid to go to sleep, which, get that in your head, that becomes a very, very dark time in your life. So anyway, I start these positive changes on my life. I start planning my life. I start thinking a lot constantly about my future and what it might look like. While I'm researching the Kickstarter, which is my plan of how I could work for myself via something I know a lot about, something I care deeply about, and also operate through a post office, and then I could live near one, just in case, right? I'm getting better, of course. Maybe not of course for everybody, but I'm getting better. I feel like it's basically gone, even though it's still hard to talk about. But what if it comes back, right? It came out of nowhere, and who knows? So I fight it tooth and nail every single day, and that's just how it is. So I started doing the Kickstarter, and I'm in a good spot because I've paid off all my debt. I'm driving again, not far distances, but I can get to the game store and hang out with some friends. I'm not leaving the game store suddenly because I feel like I'm dying of a heart attack, which happened multiple times. And I'm buying a lot of games on Kickstarter, and I'm buying a lot of armies off people. I'm off, websites like Craigslist or apps like OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace. I'm buying tons of miniatures from the local game store that I play at. You know, every like $200 you spend, you get a 20% off card. And then to get the most value out of the 20% off card, I would spend like $300-400 because now my income was felt amazing. It was actually pretty bad income. It was like 1,500-1,600 bucks a month, but I had paid all my debt and I was living at home and I had no car. My phone was on my parents' plan. I had no bills. I didn't pay for food unless I ate out. So $1,500 for Taco Bell here and there, or Arby's when you're at the game store, is a lot of money. And you could spend $500-600 a month and still have $900 extra in the bank account. So it felt like I was living the dream in a sense, even though deep down I wanted to escape living at home for the rest of my life, obviously. Because I just came back from living in Vegas, where I lived this kind of crazy party lifestyle with, you know, alcohol and women and partying and carne asada fries. Rest in peace, carne asada fries, because I don't eat those anymore. But so I wanted to get out, but instead of putting some of that effort for a while into getting out, I put a lot of that effort into buying happiness, and this has been about a 15-minute way of saying that. Buying all these armies, I don't think I was, and this is just me thinking about it, I don't think I was buying the Flesh Eater Court army because I love Flesh Eater Courts. I was buying the idea of how cool it would look to have a Monster Mash Undead Dragon army. And this was before the dragons were any good. They were just, you know, this is like index times or whatever. Or I wasn't buying the Skaven because I love Skaven. It was because if I buy all these people's Skaven armies, I have enough to play every clan as its own individual army, and how awesome it's going to be when they're all painted, and how many laughs and how much fun I'm going to have with my friends at the game store, which was like the only positive thing I had going in my life that wasn't at home. You know, there was some big problems at home. I don't really want to get into that right here, but there was also some joy, you know, like eating with your family or playing with your pets, you know, watching hockey with your father, stuff like that. But when I left, it was terror and fear. And when I was buying things, I was buying a lot of things for the game store because that's where I knew I had to be comfortable and have fun there. And for the most part, I did. So if I left the house, I was going to the post office or the game store, and occasionally I would do the grocery store because I like cooking and I like buying stuff to cook. So I would try to struggle through that. I also knew every time I would panic and not go to the grocery store, that would be, or it's the game store, that's a mark in the lose category, right? If it's a win-loss. So I would rather lose at the grocery store than lose before I got to the grocery store. So if you're dealing with anxiety or things like that, don't not do things because you're afraid of the outcome. You need to spend more time dreaming instead of time worrying, right? So don't not go to the grocery store because you might have a panic attack. Go to the grocery store because you might have a panic attack. And then when you have a panic attack, fucking go get that, you know, whole wheat bread that you went there for anyway, stand in the self-checkout for 5 seconds, buy it, and then get the hell out of there if that's what you need to do. But it's much, much worse if you just don't go. If you don't get up and go, your world's going to crush you. Your world's going to keep pressing in on you. And eventually, it's like a candle. Your light is going to go out, and it's probably going to be through self-harm. So avoid that at all costs. Keep going. It's another good thing would be like if you like going to the gym and it's raining out. Don't not go to the gym because it's raining out. Go to the gym because it's raining out, right? And then when you get there, nobody's going to be there. And it's going to be the best time you've ever had at the gym because you have it all to yourself for $10 a month or whatever, right? And it's like you own your own big personal gym. So I know this is all over the place. It's hard to organize these thoughts. Maybe I should write them down and do a more cool, edited, scripted, I quit anxiety for 30 days video. And then maybe I'll go on the trending page. But this isn't for the general public, I guess. This is just for my subscribers who support me either through my Kickstarter or support me through Patreon or support me through subscribing on YouTube or support me, even if you don't subscribe, just occasionally popping in to see what I'm up to. Or, if you buy a commission or check out my eBay store or just jump in the comments and tell me I suck at what I'm doing. Whatever. Nothing anybody's ever said in the YouTube comments worse than being afraid to go to sleep at night. I can tell you that. So anyway, go because it's hard and just try your best. And it turns out the more you try, the easier it gets, which is of course true, but it's hard to convince yourself of that. So maybe I can help convince you of that because I've done it and I still go through it a bit, even though I would consider myself somewhat recovered. A little helpful thing is just usually people around you don't probably don't understand it. A lot of people I don't think talk about it even if they do understand it or haven't deeply thought about it if they understand it or if they're going through it. So you're kind of on your own. You're going to spend a lot of time in your head. And I think starting a YouTube channel is going to help you if you want to try to design a lifestyle that is maybe more suitable to what you're going through. So this week, I've been kind of sick, fatigued. I've been sleeping all day one day on a Monday. If I had to go to work and I slept all day, I would have had to call in sick, right? If I went Tuesday and had to go home early and took a nap, that might be the end of it, right? When you go to work for somebody, they have the ability to fire you because you're 15 minutes late. That's how much you're worth to an employer in a lot of cases. And if you think your employer cares about you enough that they won't fire you for being 15 minutes late, then great. And if you're happy, this is more about happiness than anything. If you're happy with your job, then you don't need this advice. But if you're not happy with it and you don't like being treated like a 15-minute insect, right? No value to you whatsoever besides that you're there making somebody else money, whether that be cleaning up something or serving food to people who are upset that their salad isn't cold enough or something. Maybe they didn't get enough almonds on it, whatever. Maybe their ice cream's not sweet enough, whatever. If you've worked around food, lots of complaints there. But I suggest you try to find happiness and highly, highly consider designing a life around it. Now, when I'm backing all these board games on Kickstarter, I'm buying the happiness that I'm going to be spending the rest of my life playing board games and painting miniatures and laughing with friends and having a great time. And I have every intention to spend the rest of my life painting and, probably gaming as well. Probably not these particular games, and I probably don't need these 5 coming now all at once. 2 of them have already gotten here, and one of them should be shipping out soon, I think, which is like, it feels like they're avalanching upon me. And it's almost like I don't want them anymore, even though I still want to play them. And the same thing with all these armies. And I started selling off a lot of these armies. I probably had 20 armies. And I come from the old days where we would play like 8,000 point games. To me, an army's not an exact 2,000 point list. It's more like a 1 or 2 of everything style. And so I sold a lot of these armies. I still feel like I have way too many. And I really, really think I'm going to sell a lot of my stuff. Also, I'm living in this apartment now. And I don't know if this is exactly for me. I'm going to try over the next like 8 months or 10 months, however long. I think I got like 10 more months on my lease. I just moved in. Uh, I think I'm going to revisit full-time travel living, whether that be in like an RV type vehicle or having like a home base and living kind of traveling around, maybe in like Airbnbs or something like that, or a van uh, with, like a home type situation in Phoenix, like rent out a room and then spend a lot of my time traveling. And that's just how I'm trying to approach it. And part of the, oh my God, my brain is fried right now. I just can't keep my train of thought going here because I touched on some emotional stuff earlier. Uh, so anyway, I'm trying to sell off a bunch of my stuff and I've been considering and thinking about really how much do I need. And it's hard to go down under like 3 or 4 armies when really I probably should have like 2 little ones and be fine, or one army and then one I'm working on. That way I'm painting. Even though I do like actually painting a lot of, commissions. If you guys want a commission, hit me up. I like painting, miniatures to sell on eBay. That's really fun because then I get to paint what I want and then I just put it up there, and if it doesn't sell, then it's cool. I got a cool painted miniature over on the shelf. So in my thoughts on downsizing, and I know I talk about money a lot with selling models. People don't want to turn their hobby into a job. But what they don't understand, I don't think, is that when you cut your expenses way, way down, which mine went way, way up by getting this apartment, which clearly now is making me think about this a lot. Because if I could cut my expenses way back down, then put all that extra money into the stock market, into like the Vanguard Total Index Fund, eventually you can buy your freedom and live off of dividends or withdrawals from your investment account. Or you could buy a rental property or two. Another option is you could buy like a duplex, live in one half and rent out the other half, and the rent from that half pays for the other half. It's called like house hacking if you want to look into it on YouTube. So there's a lot of ways you could do what you love and not make a lot of money doing it, as long as while you're making money doing what maybe you don't love, you save it. Now, I'm fortunate enough at this point in my life that I'm doing what I love and I'm getting to save a lot of it because of you guys and because of the people who backed me on Kickstarter and the people who buy something from my eBay store. And it's been like an incredible, incredible journey just because it's, I get to live like my dream, I guess, or I get to work towards my dream. I'm not living my dream necessarily yet, but I feel like not only is there light at the end of the tunnel when, not too many years ago, there was nothing but doom and darkness, and not the awesome YouTubers, shout out to Doom and Darkness, but I mean like, death and self-harm. And now it feels like there's light at the end of the tunnel and it feels very possible. And when I look around me at all my stuff, I wonder what the actual value it is if I could turn it back into money, especially if I painted it and turned it into money. Is it 30, 40,000 more dollars I could put into ETF or an index fund? Probably. Like realistically, how much stuff I have and how much stuff I have coming from Kickstarters, and just, when you can buy a model for $3 or $4 from Reaper Bones and sell it for 30, 40 bucks, not easily, but pretty easily, maybe 60, 70, 100, 120 bucks, more difficult to do, but possible. It seems very possible to escape maybe like a 9 to 5, which I don't have and haven't had for a while, because even in Vegas, I wasn't really like on a 9 to 5. It was more like a party job. Although I had to show up, I could also drink at work, which was super cool at the time and super damaging to my, obviously, life. But so it seems possible to sell off like 80% or something of my stuff, get it all into my investments. With your help, of course, I need all the support in the world on this. And also, then I could worry more about, figuring out how to make the ghost brushes and future brushes. I got the dry brushes coming soon. Look at that guy. I've been using that on like 20 different things. It's still looking really good. Obviously stained because dry brushes don't get cleaned that much. But look at that. That baby's holding up. Still soft. Still crushing it. So you're going to be super pumped when that comes out. Also, if you want to support on Patreon, that's going to be a big, big help to me, even if it's just $1. Later this year, I get to donate 1,332 paintbrushes to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I have to call them and see if they even want that many brushes. And I don't know if places turn down donations, but that was part of my Kickstarter was I was going to donate a brush for every backer. So that's a huge thanks to everybody who backed it. Because of you helping me, together we get to help kids paint, probably with some watercolors that, who knows what horrible times they're going through if they're in the children's hospital. And, maybe some of them, God damn it. Maybe some of them like art and, we can make them have a nice Christmas, right? Help them enjoy their Christmas. If I knew how to edit, I'd maybe edit this out, but I don't. So, and that's another pro tip for anybody thinking about trying to design your life or start a YouTube. I'm over 1,000 subscribers. I never edited a single video. I don't know how. I started on my cell phone using the front-facing camera like this, and not even the good camera, the front-facing one. And then eventually I bought a microphone, and then now I'm using a webcam and a microphone. And back there in that box right there, I do have a nicer camera that one day I'll learn how to use for us to get better videos. But this is working for now. So I just want to say, in the most roundabout, crazy life story sort of way, thank you so much for the support. Because if I spent this week having to sleep off whatever weird body ache, muscle fatigue thing my body was going through, that could have been a lost job. That could have been food that I couldn't afford. That could have been electricity bills I couldn't afford. That could have meant evictions. That could have meant homelessness. And those things are really possible. If you don't save money, some people are only living paycheck to paycheck. And it honestly, if they were really trying to cut their cost of living down and worried more about the saving part, they wouldn't put themselves in that much danger. And I know it's possible you can actually make only enough to survive. And I'm not saying it's your fault. But it's definitely possible to make extra money on eBay, because just start looking into it. It's super, super easy and super possible. So even if you just had to make an extra $100 a month, you do that, that's $1,200 a year. And if you did that for 5 years, that'd be $6,000 you'd have in the save, like an emergency fund that could last you maybe 3 months if you ever got fired, and help you get back on your feet before you hit the streets as a homeless person, which of course you don't want to become. So thank you so much for all the support. This is like Thanksgiving. Thank you to everybody. Please support the channel. We're going to be helping people out here, hopefully more in the future. If you have any stories about any of this relating to you and you don't want to leave them in the comments below, which I hope you do, just so other people could read them and find out they're not alone, then go ahead and email me, because I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I don't think I haven't got a school for it or whatever. I'm not an expert, but I am a self-help. I'm self-helping myself. I'm helping myself. I don't even know how to say it. I'm working on it myself. I've gone through a lot of it. I'm going through a lot of it. And I don't know even how to title this video. So whatever title I put up, if you have a better title down below, please leave it. Please like the video. Please join the Patreon. That would mean so much if I could get that going. I'd love to do some bigger giveaways on the Patreon. If you don't have $1 for the Patreon, it does not bother me at all. Please just subscribe to the channel. If you don't want to subscribe but you want some paintbrushes, consider my paintbrushes. If you want a D&D character painted, consider me. And then hopefully we can build this up. So thank you so much. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. This year will be my first Thanksgiving without eating meat or dairy. I might pick a little bit on like some mashed potatoes or something, but I'm going to make kind of like a zucchini pasta dish to bring for everybody to try, and just, something that I can easily fill up on and enjoy myself and hang out with the nephews, roll around and talk to some family members. And hopefully you all have a wonderful time too. So what a crazy video this was. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.